The mighty Yellow River is known to the Han people as the mother of Chinese civilization. It appears yellow because of the high amount of sediment in the river. It is the second longest river in China, stretching 5,500 kilometers from the western part of central China to the eastern coast. Its floodplain provides farmland critical to feeding the Chinese people. This river also has a turbulent history of destructive floods, which has earned it the nickname China's Sorrow. The Yellow River flood of 1938 was an intentional act of defensive hydrological warfare committed by the Chinese government as Imperial Japan was invading during the Second Sino-Japanese War, which was basically World War II before it started in the Western Hemisphere. The Japanese forces were approaching the important railway junction of Zhengzhou. Losing this railway junction would allow the Japanese to threaten Wuhan, a major Chinese city and the temporary capital at the time. The fear was that the Japanese would take Wuhan before the Chinese were able to withdraw, leading to a collapse of the war effort and a Chinese surrender. On June 4, 1938, Chiang Kai-shek, the Chinese president at the time, gave the order for the dikes along the Yellow River to be breached in a desperate attempt to defend Zhengzhou and buy time for the evacuation of Wuhan. On the 6th of June, the Japanese captured Kaifeng, which is the red marker on the map. By means of excavation, Chinese forces managed to breach a dike at Huahuankou on June the 7th. While initially moving slow, spring flooding soon started and the water would surge down through the plains of Henan and Anhui provinces unimpeded. It would flow down to the Huai River, which is marked by the black horizontal line and the blue marker, and eventually as far east as Hongzhi Lake. Here we see a proper map of the extension of the flooding from the original dike breach. The human impact. Though sources vary, it is generally agreed upon that upwards of 400,000 people died as a result of the flooding because of poor communication. Few people were warned of the oncoming flood, and upwards of 3 million were made refugees. The decision to breach the dike and unleash the Yellow River on the Japanese invaders was very controversial in the following years. Despite successfully defending the railway junction at Zhengzhou and halting the advance of the Japanese forces, there is little evidence that the flood did anything to harm Japanese supplies or personnel. The city of Wuhan would be taken in October of 1938, but the floods had bought the Chinese enough time to withdraw, move, fight another day. The environmental impact of the flooding was terrible. Around 13,000 square kilometers of farmland was flooded, representing around 1/3 of previously cultivated land. This would cause massive food shortages, eventually partially causing the famine of 1942 to 1943 in Henan province, which killed an estimated 2 to 3 million people, and many more fled the province. Only after World War II, in 1946, would the government be able to revert the river back to its original course. In conclusion, this reactionary manipulation of a force of nature in wartime caused damage to the environment, people, and the landscape for years to come, and even after the war had ended. The floods ruined crops and villages, left dead livestock and farmers in its wake, and caused much destruction to nature. Despite the dike breaches finally being plugged in 1946, it would be a much longer road to recovery for the people and its environment.